In a quiet, small Georgia town, a young girl vanished without a trace while playing in her grandmother's garden, leaving her mother and the authorities desperately searching for answers. The child's disappearance haunted the once peaceful community, with residents struggling to believe that such a tragedy could happen in their midst. Yet one day, after over 2 months with no clues, a park janitor discovered a crucial detail that would change the entire case in ways no one could have imagined. Before we dive into this shocking story, let us reflect on the events that unfolded and the hope that emerged from despair. Laura Anderson's car pulled into the driveway of her modest single-story home in Elder Fork as the warm Georgia sun began to dip low in the sky. The 36-year-old African-American woman sat behind the wheel for a moment, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as she took a deep breath. It was Tuesday, May 12th, and she had just returned from yet another fruitless visit to the police station. Stepping out of the car, the weight of the past 2 months pressed down on her shoulders. 2 months of relentless searching, sleepless nights, and hope flickering like a candle in the wind had passed since her 9-year-old daughter, Sophie, had vanished without a trace. Laura fumbled with her keys, her fingers trembling slightly as she unlocked the front door of a house that once echoed with Sophie's laughter but now felt cavernous and empty. As she stepped inside, her eyes immediately fell on Sophie's colorful backpack, still hanging by the door, a poignant reminder of the fateful day her daughter had left it behind. The sight sent a sharp pain through Laura's heart, a reminder of the life that had been so abruptly interrupted. Moving further into the living room, her gaze was drawn to the couch where Sophie's favorite stuffed elephant sat untouched. Laura remembered how Sophie would cuddle with it while watching cartoons, her infectious giggles filling the room. Now, the silence was deafening. With a heavy sigh, Laura dropped her purse on the kitchen counter, and as she did, a stack of new missing person flyers, picked up from the print shop on her way home, slid out. Each flyer featured Sophie's bright smile and dark eyes twinkling with mischief and joy, and Laura traced her finger over her daughter's face, willing the image to come to life. The events of March 12th played through her mind for what felt like the millionth time. It had been a normal day when Laura had dropped Sophie off at her grandmother Eloise's house before heading to work. Sophie had been playing in the backyard while Eloise prepared lunch inside. Then, in the brief moment it took for Eloise to answer a phone call, Sophie had simply disappeared. The police had been called immediately, combing through the neighborhood, interviewing everyone within a 5-mile radius. Yet they found absolutely nothing, as if Sophie had vanished in a thin air, leaving no trace behind. Laura moved to the kitchen, her body operating on autopilot as she filled the kettle and set on the stove. Making tea had become a ritual, a small act that gave her the tiniest semblance of normality in a world turned upside down. As she waited for the water to boil, Detective Roberts' words from earlier that day echoed in her mind. "We're still looking, Miss Anderson," although the unspoken implication lingered that without new evidence, it might be time to accept that Sophie might never be found. But Laura could not accept that. As long as there was breath in her body, she would keep searching, keep hoping, and keep fighting to bring her little girl home. Suddenly, the kettle whistled, startling Laura from her thoughts. She poured the hot water over a tea bag, watching as the color slowly seeped into the water. In that moment, she made a silent promise to Sophie, wherever she might be. "I will find you, baby girl, no matter what it takes. I will bring you home." Carrying her steaming cup of tea to the kitchen table where her laptop sat open, she took a deep breath, settled into her chair, and logged into Facebook. The Find Sophie Anderson page she had created 2 months ago greeted her with its follower count now surpassing 3,000. The outpouring of support from the tight-knit community of Elder Fork and the surrounding areas had been overwhelming. As she scrolled through the page, her eyes skimmed over countless messages of encouragement and hope. Local businesses had shared her posts, offering their windows and bulletin boards for flyers. Strangers had organized search parties combing through areas already searched by the police, hoping to find something, anything that might lead to Sophie. While reading through the comments on her latest update, a notification for a new message appeared, and Laura's heart skipped a beat as it did every time she received a new message, each one holding the potential to be the breakthrough she so desperately needed. She clicked on the notification, and a message from a man named Mr. Raymond appeared. His profile picture showed a middle-aged white man with kind eyes and graying hair. The message read, "I think I found something that might belong to your daughter. A pink necklace with beads and a heart pendant. I tried calling several times, but couldn't reach you." Laura's hands began to shake as she quickly navigated back to her most recent post, which she had shared just hours earlier. In that post, she had provided a detailed description of Sophie, including a mention of her favorite necklace, a pink beaded one with a heart pendant that Laura had specially ordered for her birthday. In the comments, Mr. Raymond had written, "I believe I've seen this necklace at Memorial Park, still there as of this afternoon." With trembling fingers, Laura checked her call history, and, sure enough, there were 3 missed calls from an unknown number within the past 2 hours. How had she missed them? She had been so vigilant about answering every call, terrified of missing that one crucial piece of information that could lead her to Sophie. A surge of hope coursed through Laura, though it was tempered with caution. She had received false leads before, well-meaning people who were mistaken, or worse, cruel pranksters who found amusement in a mother's desperation. Each time, the disappointment had been crushing, leaving Laura feeling more hopeless than before. But she couldn't ignore this lead, even if it turned out to be nothing. Sophie's life could depend on it. Taking a deep breath to steady her nerves, Laura picked up her phone, her finger hovering over the call button for a moment before she pressed it. The phone rang twice before a man answered with a gentle hello. Laura's heart raced as she introduced herself. "This is Laura Anderson. I received a message about a necklace you found." "Yes, Miss Anderson," the man replied in a gentle yet direct voice. "I'm Mr. Raymond. I've been the janitor and groundskeeper at Memorial Park for the past 15 years. Laura listened intently as Mr. Raymond explained that he had noticed the necklace earlier that day while cleaning near the central statue. "When I saw this pink beaded necklace with a heart pendant hanging from the statue's outstretched hand," he said, his voice growing more animated as he continued, "I remembered seeing your Facebook posts about your missing daughter and the distinctive necklace you mentioned. That's why it caught my attention." Laura's grip on the phone tightened. Could this really be Sophie's necklace? How had it ended up in the park? Her mind raced with unsettling possibilities. Though not completely certain it was the same necklace, Mr. Raymond admitted, "I didn't want to remove it in case it was evidence. So I tried calling you while I continued my work at the park." "Is the necklace still there?" Laura asked urgently, already reaching for her car keys. "Yes, it is," Mr. Raymond confirmed. "I've been keeping an eye on it to make sure no one takes it." A rush of gratitude filled Laura toward this stranger who had gone out of his way to help. "Why didn't you contact the police directly?" she asked, curious about his decision to reach out to her first. His voice took on an apologetic tone. "I wanted to check with you first to confirm if it might actually be Sophie's necklace. I didn't want to potentially waste police resources if it turned out to be nothing." Though understanding his reasoning, every moment felt crucial. "Now I'm coming to the park right away," she said, her voice tense with urgency. "Can you wait there until I arrive?" "Of course," Mr. Raymond readily agreed, adding, "I'll be near the central fountain statue where the necklace is located." After ending the call, Laura felt a mix of hope and anxiety churning in her stomach. This could be the break she had been praying for, the first real lead in 2 agonizing months. Yet she knew she had to approach the situation calmly and methodically. Quickly, she dialed Detective Roberts' number as she hurried to her car. When the call went to voicemail, she left a brief message explaining the situation and that she was heading to Memorial Park. The drive to the park felt both excruciatingly long and alarmingly short as Laura's mind raced with possibilities. If this was indeed Sophie's necklace, how had it ended up in the park? Was Sophie trying to leave a clue? Or had something more sinister happened? As she pulled into the parking lot, Laura took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever she might find. Stepping out of the car, her eyes scanned the park for Mr. Raymond. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the grass, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the old oak trees that dotted the park. Soon, Laura spotted a figure standing near the central area, an older man in a gray maintenance uniform with Memorial Park staff embroidered on the chest pocket. As she approached, his concerned expression softened into one of recognition. For a moment, Laura had feared this might be a cruel prank, that no one would actually be there waiting. But seeing Mr. Raymond standing respectfully by the statue sparked a flicker of hope. Quickening her pace, her heart pounded with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The park was relatively quiet for a Tuesday afternoon, with just a few dog walkers and joggers circling the perimeter. The tranquil atmosphere was at odds with the turmoil in Laura's mind. "Miss Anderson," Mr. Raymond greeted her gently, and Laura, finding herself momentarily speechless, managed to take a deep breath and reply, "Yes, I'm Laura Anderson." "Thank you for waiting, Mr. Raymond." Mr. Raymond's kind eyes crinkled with concern as he said, "Of course, I can only imagine how difficult this must be for you. The necklace is just over here." He led her toward the bronze statue of Elder Fork's founder, which stood about 8 feet tall in the center of the park, its arm extended outward in a welcoming gesture. As they approached, Laura's breath caught in her throat. Delicately draped over the statue's outstretched hand was a necklace that made her heart skip a beat. Pink glass beads gleamed in the late afternoon sunlight, and a familiar heart-shaped pendant hung from the center. Laura froze, her eyes fixed on the necklace. It was unmistakable, the distinctive pendant that she had specially ordered from an artisan shop for Sophie's birthday. Yet seeing it in this unexpected place felt surreal. With trembling hands, Laura stepped closer, drinking in every detail. She immediately recognized unique features that only a mother would know. The small chip on one of the beads from when Sophie had accidentally dropped it, and the tiny inscription "Essay" that she had requested on the back of the heart pendant. Her legs nearly gave out as reality hit her. This was the first concrete evidence that Sophie had been in this area since her disappearance. Someone had deliberately placed it there to be found. "Is it your daughter's?" Mr. Raymond asked softly while watching Laura's reaction. Unable to speak for a moment, she finally whispered, "Yes, it's Sophie's. I'd recognize it anywhere." She wanted nothing more than to reach out and grab the necklace to hold a piece of her daughter close to her heart. But the countless conversations she had had with the police over the past 2 months had ingrained in her the importance of preserving evidence. The necklace might contain fingerprints or other clues that could lead them to Sophie. With shaking hands, Laura pulled out her phone and dialed 911. When the operator answered, she struggled to keep her voice steady as she explained, "I'm at Memorial Park. We found physical evidence connected to my missing daughter's case, her necklace." As she spoke, Mr. Raymond stood nearby in quiet support, gently redirecting a curious jogger who had slowed down to look at the necklace and keeping the area clear. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air. 2 police cars pulled up with flashing lights, and officers quickly approached the statue. Laura recognized one of them as Officer Johnson, who had been involved in the initial search for Sophie. "Miss Anderson," he said in a serious but kind tone, "can you confirm this is your daughter's necklace?" Laura nodded, pointing out the distinctive features, the chip bead and the inscription. Another car pulled up, and Detective Roberts stepped out, his face set in grim determination as he said, "Laura, I got your message. This is potentially significant evidence. We're going to need to secure the area and process this carefully." As the officers began cordoning off the area with yellow tape, treating it as a potential crime scene, Laura watched as a technician carefully retrieved the necklace and placed it gently in an evidence bag. Detective Roberts then turned to her, his voice both gentle and firm. "We'll check for fingerprints and DNA, and we'll also review all security footage from businesses surrounding the park. We need to see if we can identify who placed the necklace there." Laura nodded, her mind reeling after 2 months of nothing. This small piece of jewelry represented the first real lead in finding Sophie. It was proof that her daughter had been in the park at some point since her disappearance. As she watched the officers work, a young policeman approached Detective Roberts and spoke in a low, urgent tone. Though Laura couldn't make out the words, she saw the detective's expression change. His eyebrows lifted in surprise. Detective Roberts then turned to her with a new intensity in his eyes and said, "Laura, we may have something." The officer had just informed him that they had already obtained security footage from Rosie's cafe, located across from the park entrance, showing something significant from the day Sophie disappeared. Laura's heart leaped in her throat. Could this be the breakthrough they had been waiting for? She sent up a silent prayer. Please, let this lead us to Sophie. Let this bring my baby home. Her heart raced as she followed Detective Roberts to a police vehicle where a laptop had been set up. The screen showed grainy but clear footage from a security camera with a timestamp from March 12th, the day Sophie disappeared. This is footage from Rosie's cafe, directly across from the park entrance, Detective Roberts explained, his voice tense with anticipation. Watch closely. Leaning in, Laura's eyes were glued to the screen. At first, she saw only the usual foot traffic, people entering and leaving the cafe, others walking past on the sidewalk. Then her breath caught in her throat. Walking into view was a man in a baseball cap and sunglasses, and beside him, holding his hand and licking an ice cream cone, was unmistakably Sophie. "Oh my God," Laura whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "That's her. That's my baby." The footage only showed the pair from behind as they entered the park. The man's face was obscured by his cap and sunglasses, but his height, build, and distinctive walking pattern were clearly visible. Detective Roberts paused the video, his face grim, and said, "This is significant evidence, Laura. It confirms that Sophie was taken to the park that day, likely by someone who deliberately disguised himself and knew how to avoid showing his face to security cameras." Laura could not tear her eyes away from the frozen image of her daughter, looking so small next to the unknown man. Questions raced through her mind. Why can't we see where they went in the park? How did the necklace end up on the statue? Unfortunately, the cafe's camera did not cover that area of the park, explained Detective Roberts. We're going to canvass the area for any other cameras that might have caught them, but this is already a huge lead. His expression softened as he continued. We're going to release still images from this footage to local news stations and on social media platforms. Someone might recognize the man by his build, clothing, or walking pattern. Laura nodded, trying to process everything. After 2 months of nothing, they now had tangible evidence that Sophie was alive after leaving her grandmother's yard. Yet the sight of her daughter with this unknown man filled her with a mixture of hope and terror. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Detective Roberts' face was set in determination as he replied, "We pursue this lead aggressively. We will analyze every frame of this footage, check for any other cameras in the area that might have caught them, and put out an alert for anyone who might recognize the man." Pausing, he placed a comforting hand on Laura's shoulder. "I know this is a lot to take in, and we're going to need you to prepare for a difficult wait as we analyze all this new evidence, but I promise you we're not going to rest until we find Sophie." Laura nodded, feeling simultaneously hopeful and frustrated. They now had more information than they had in the previous 2 months, yet there was still no clear path to finding her daughter. "I want to help," she said firmly. "I want to do whatever I can to find her." Detective Roberts nodded, understanding in his eyes, and advised, "The best thing you can do right now is to keep spreading the word, share the images we release, and talk to anyone who might have seen something." As they wrapped up at the scene, Detective Roberts provided Laura with digital copies of the footage, promising, "I'll call the moment we have any updates." This necklace discovery might pressure the kidnapper into making a mistake. After all, they were closer than they had ever been. Clutching the USB drive with the CCTV footage, which represented both hope and fear, Laura knew it was proof that Sophie had been alive and in the park that day, but it also served as evidence of the danger she was in. As she walked back to her car, her mind was already racing with plans. She would post the screenshots online, reach out to every contact she had made over the past 2 months, and do whatever it took to identify the man who had taken her daughter. The sun was setting as Laura drove home, casting long shadows across the road. She glanced at the USB drive sitting on the passenger seat with a mixture of determination and dread, knowing one thing for certain. She wouldn't rest until Sophie was safe in her arms again. The moment she arrived home, she rushed to her laptop, her fingers trembling as she inserted the USB drive containing the CCTV footage. Opening her Find Sophie Anderson Facebook page, Her heart pounded as she prepared to share the most significant update in 2 months. With careful attention to detail, Laura uploaded screenshots from the footage, ensuring that clear images of the man's build, clothing, and distinctive gait were included. She added a detailed description, emphasizing his height, the way he walked, and the baseball cap and sunglasses he wore to conceal his face, as she typed. Her emotions swung wildly between hope and fear. Seeing Sophie in the footage had been both a relief and a shock. Her daughter was alive, at least on that day, but she was in the hands of someone who had gone to great lengths to hide his identity. Urgently, Laura began her update post. New evidence has been discovered in Sophie's case. These images show my daughter with an unknown man on the day she disappeared. If you recognize this man by his build, clothing, or the way he walks, please contact the police immediately. Any information, no matter how small, could be crucial in bringing Sophie home. She hit post and watched as the update instantly began to gain traction. Within minutes, the post had dozens of shares and comments poured in from community members eager to help. Laura stayed glued to her computer, responding to every message and comment, her eyes scanning desperately for any useful information. Most comments were well-meaning yet unhelpful suggestions or expressions of support, but Laura knew she could not afford to overlook anything. As she sifted through the flood of responses, a comment caught her eye from a young couple claiming they had been in the park on the day Sophie disappeared. They said they had seen a man matching the description from the security footage walking with a little girl who looked distressed. With her heart racing, Laura immediately sent them a private message, hoping this might be the breakthrough she had been praying for. However, as the conversation continued, her hope quickly turned to frustration and anger. Their story began to unravel, details changing with each message. When Laura pressed for more information, they suddenly demanded money in exchange for what they claimed was crucial evidence. With a heavy heart, Laura realized this was just another cruel scam attempt, one of many she had encountered over the past 2 months. The couple's profile was fake, filled with stolen photos and fabricated information. It was clear they were preying on her desperation, hoping to exploit a mother's anguish for financial gain. Fighting back tears of disappointment and rage, Laura reported the profile to Facebook and blocked the users. Taking a deep breath, she tried to center herself. This wasn't the first time she had encountered such heartless deceit, and she knew it likely wouldn't be the last. Yet she could not let these setbacks deter her. Somewhere out there, someone had real information that could lead her to Sophie, and she had to keep searching and keep hoping. That night, as Laura made herself cup after cup of strong coffee to stay alert, she couldn't bear the thought of missing a crucial piece of information because she had fallen asleep around midnight. While in the kitchen, refilling her coffee mug, a movement outside caught her eye. Glancing out the window, she froze. Standing near her mailbox was an elderly woman, staring directly at her house. Dressed in a dark coat despite the warm spring night, her silver hair gleamed in the moonlight as she deliberately watched Laura's home, her gaze fixed and unwavering. Laura's heart raced. Was this someone who had information about Sophie? Or was it something more sinister, someone connected to the kidnapping? As soon as the woman noticed Laura looking back, she quickly turned away, pretending to simply walk past. But Laura wasn't fooled. The woman's behavior was too deliberate, too focused to be coincidental. Without thinking, Laura rushed to her front door and out onto the porch, calling out, "Wait, please, I need to talk to you." By the time Laura reached the street, the mysterious figure had vanished into the darkness. The street was empty and silent, as if the woman had never been there at all. Shaken, Laura retreated back into her house, double-checking all locks and windows. Was she imagining things? Had the stress and exhaustion of the past 2 months finally taken its toll, causing her to see threats where there were none? No, she decided she had definitely seen someone watching her house. But why? And who was this mysterious woman? With trembling hands, Laura picked up her phone and dialed Detective Robert's number. Despite the late hour, the call went to voicemail, and Laura left a message describing the strange woman and what had happened. "I know it's late, but I thought you should know about this. It might be nothing, but after everything that's happened, I can't ignore it. Please call me back when you can." After ending the call, Laura returned to her laptop but found it hard to focus on the comments and messages. Her mind kept drifting back to the woman outside. Was she someone who knew something about Sophie's disappearance? Or was she connected to the man in the video? As the night deepened, Laura forced herself to try to sleep, though her mind raced with questions. Lying in bed, she stared at the ceiling, her thoughts a chaotic mix of hope from the new evidence and fear of what it might mean. Just before dawn, she finally drifted into a fitful sleep, her dreams filled with shadowy figures and her daughter's voice calling out for help. Even in sleep, she couldn't escape the worry and fear that had become her constant companions since Sophie's disappearance. When the first rays of sunlight began to peek through the curtains, Laura jolted awake for a moment, disoriented as the events of the previous day flooded back to her in a rush. The necklace, the video footage, the mysterious woman outside her house. It all swirled in her mind as she struggled to fully wake up. Glancing at the clock, Laura realized she had only managed a couple of hours of sleep, but there was no time to waste. She needed to get to the police station to see if there were any updates on the necklace or the video footage. As she got dressed, her mind raced with possibilities. Had anyone recognized the man in the video? Had the police found any fingerprints on the necklace? And what about the woman she had seen outside her house the previous night? Grabbing a quick cup of coffee, she headed out the door, her body running on adrenaline and determination. As she walked toward her car, movement at the far end of her street caught her eye. Her heart nearly stopped as she recognized the same elderly woman from the previous night, unmistakably watching her house again. This time, Laura didn't hesitate. She immediately began walking toward the woman, calling out, "Excuse me, I need to speak with you." The woman appeared startled, her eyes widening as she realized Laura was approaching. Hastily, she began to walk away, her movements stiff and hurried. But Laura was quicker. She caught up to the woman and, in a firm yet polite voice, said, "Please, I just want to talk. Who are you, and why have you been watching my house?" Now close enough to see her clearly, the elderly woman, who appeared to be in her late 70s with a deeply lined face and neatly combed silver hair, seemed torn between fleeing and speaking. After a moment of hesitation, the woman's mouth opened and closed as if struggling to find the right words. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, I saw the pictures online. The girl." Laura's heart raced. "My daughter? Sophie? Do you know something about her?" The woman's composure crumbled, her eyes filling with tears as she continued. I think the man who took your daughter is my son." Laura froze, her mind reeling from this unexpected revelation. The woman, now speaking with a voice heavy with shame and fear, continued, "His name is David Dawson. He was released from prison 6 months ago. He served time for attempting to lure a young girl from an online dating platform." Laura's hands shook as she reached for her phone, her eyes never leaving the woman's face. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice surprisingly steady despite the turmoil inside her. "My name is Mary," the woman replied. As Laura dialed Detective Roberts' number, she kept her other hand on Mary's arm, ensuring the woman didn't try to leave. When the detective answered, Laura quickly explained the situation in a rush of words. Within minutes, several police cars arrived at the scene. Mary appeared cooperative yet deeply distressed, repeatedly apologizing and saying she had hoped her son had changed after prison. Detective Roberts arrived shortly after, his face grim as he approached Laura and Mary. "We need to move quickly," he said. "Mrs. Dawson, we're going to need you to take us to your son's residence immediately." As they drove to David Dawson's house, Laura's mind was in turmoil. They were closer than ever to finding Sophie, yet the reality of what her daughter might have endured at the hands of this man was almost too much to bear. When they arrived at the small, run-down property on the outskirts of town, Laura saw several police cars already stationed there. Detective Roberts had dispatched units to the address. Soon after, an officer approached their car as they pulled up, saying in a tense voice, "Detective, we found one of Sophie's shoes inside the house during our preliminary search. It confirms we're on the right track, but neither David nor the girl are in the residence." Laura's heart sank. They were so close, yet Sophie was still out of reach. Turning to Mary, who looked at the empty garage with a mixture of fear and resignation, Mary said quietly, "David owns an old blue pickup truck. It's not here. He must have fled with the girl after seeing his image on the news and social media." Detective Roberts pressed Mary for more information in a controlled but urgent tone. "Mrs. Dawson, we need to know everything about your son's history. Anything that might help us find them." Mary's composure crumbled further, tears streaming down her face as she revealed more about David's criminal past. He's been in trouble before. A few years ago, he lured a young girl through an online dating platform, taking her to a secluded area in a forest, but thankfully, the police caught him before he could harm her. The officers exchanged grim looks and quickly verified Mary's information against David's criminal record. Within minutes, everything Mary had said was confirmed. Detective Roberts immediately began issuing orders, mobilizing search units to focus on nearby forests, especially Blackwater Forest, which was closest to their current location. As the activity swirled around her, Laura stood still, her eyes fixed on David Dawson's house, certain that somewhere out there her daughter was with this man, scared and alone. The thought filled her with a determination she had never known before as she whispered, "We're coming, Sophie. Just hold on a little longer. We're coming to bring you home." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Laura found herself sitting in a police car outside David Dawson's house, watching as officers searched the property and coordinated with search teams over radios. The air was thick with tension, every minute feeling like an eternity as they waited for news. Beside her sat Mary Dawson, the elderly woman whose face was a mask of shame and sorrow. In quiet, halting words, Mary began to share fragments of David's troubled childhood and a history of mental health issues that had never been properly addressed. "I thought prison had changed him," Mary murmured, her voice barely audible. "I wanted to believe he could be better. I never imagined he would." Her voice trailed off, unable to complete the thought. Laura found it difficult to look at Mary, knowing that this woman had raised the man who had taken Sophie. Yet she also recognized that without Mary's courage in coming forward, they might never have gotten this close to finding her daughter. Meanwhile, road cameras along all major routes leading out of Elder Fork had been alerted to look for David's blue pickup truck. Laura watched as officers relayed information about possible sightings, each report causing a momentary surge of hope before being dismissed as a false lead. Patrol units were dispatched to set up roadblocks at key intersections, their flashing lights speeding away from the scene. Other officers went door to door in the surrounding neighborhoods, showing David's picture and asking if anyone had seen him or his vehicle. Meanwhile, K-9 units were being prepared for deployment. These highly trained dogs would be crucial in tracking Sophie's scent through the dense undergrowth of Blackwater Forest. Overhead, a helicopter thundered as its searchlight swept across the treetops, beginning an aerial survey of the forest. The pilot's voice crackled over the radio, reporting on clearings and abandoned structures for ground teams to investigate. Detective Roberts approached the car, his face etched with determination, assuring Laura, "We're leaving no stone unturned. Every available resource is being utilized. We're going to find her." As Laura watched this massive operation unfold, she felt a mix of hope and fear. The scale of the search was impressive, a testament to how seriously the police were taking Sophie's case. But it also drove home the urgency of the situation and the dangers her daughter might be facing. Minutes ticked by agonizingly slowly as Laura's eyes darted between the officers outside and her phone, silently willing it to ring with news of Sophie. Each time an officer approached the car, she held her breath, hoping for an update. After what felt like an eternity, but was actually about 20 minutes, Laura noticed an officer receiving information over the radio. His expression shifted, and he looked in her direction with an intensity that made her heart race. Approaching the car, the officer opened the door and said, "Miss Anderson, they found Sophie alive. AK-9 unit located her and David in a remote area of Blackwater Forest. He has been taken into custody." Laura felt the world tilt around her as the words washed over her. They seemed to come from far away. Sophie was alive, They had found her after 2 months of fear and uncertainty. As tears streamed down her face, the reality of the situation hit her. She could barely register Mary's gasp beside her or the gentle hand of the officer on her shoulder as he continued. They're bringing Sophie to the police station now. Medical personnel are waiting there to examine her. We can take you there immediately. Nodding, unable to form words, Laura's mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. Was Sophie hurt? What did she endure during these 2 months? How would this experience affect her? The drive to the station felt both endless and far too short. And although Laura wasn't sure if she was ready to face the reality of what had happened to her daughter, she was desperate to hold Sophie in her arms again. Arriving at the station, Laura saw an ambulance parked outside with flashing lights, and her heart clenched at the sight. Practically running from the car to the station entrance, her legs felt weak and unsteady. Inside, the station was a flurry of activity. Officers and medical personnel moved quickly, their voices a low hum of urgency. Laura stood in the middle of it all, her eyes searching desperately for any sign of Sophie. And then suddenly, there she was. Sophie appeared at the end of the hallway, escorted by a female officer and a paramedic. Though she looked small and fragile, her clothes were dirty and her hair tangled, Sophie was alive. When her eyes met Laura's, the world seemed to stop. "Mom!" Sophie cried out, her voice breaking, and Laura rushed forward, gathering her daughter in her arms. Holding Sophie tightly, feeling her small body shake with sobs, Laura's own tears flowed freely as she stroked her daughter's hair and whispered words of comfort and love. "I'm here, baby. You're safe now, I've got you." In that precious moment, Laura was acutely aware of the mix of emotions surging through her. Relief and joy at having Sophie back, intertwined with rage at what her child had endured and fear for the long road of recovery ahead. Yet all that mattered was that Sophie was alive and in her arms. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Silently, Laura vowed to do whatever it took to help her daughter heal, to protect her, and to support her through whatever came next. As the medical staff gently approached to begin their examination, Laura held Sophie's hand tightly and promised, "I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to get through this together." Sophie nodded, her grip tightening, and as they moved forward, Laura felt a strength she hadn't known she possessed. They had survived the nightmare of separation, and now, united once more, they would face the future together, one step at a time. After the initial shock of the reunion began to subside, Detective Roberts approached Laura and Sophie, his face a mixture of relief and concern as he gently explained that he needed to speak with Laura privately. "Sophie will be with our child psychologist and social worker," he assured them kindly. "They're specially trained to handle situations like this. We will make sure she's comfortable and safe while we talk." Though reluctant to let Sophie out of her sight, even for a moment, Laura understood the necessity of this conversation. Kneeling down to Sophie's eye level and cupping her daughter's face gently, she said, "Sweetie, I need to talk to Detective Roberts for a little while. These nice people are going to stay with you, okay? I'll be back as soon as I can. You're safe now." Sophie, wide-eyed and frightened, promised, "You'll come back. I promise." Firmly, Laura reassured her, "I'm not going far. I love you so much." With a heavy heart, Laura watched as Sophie was led away by the caring social worker. Then, turning to Detective Roberts, she gathered her strength, and they walked to a small interview room. Seated together, Detective Roberts' face was grave as he began, "Laura, I know this is incredibly difficult, but there are some things we need to discuss about what happened to Sophie during her captivity." With a throat tight with emotion, Laura nodded and said, "I understand. Please just tell me." Taking a deep breath, the detective explained that David Dawson had confessed to abducting Sophie from her grandmother's backyard. His confession contained disturbing details that Laura needed to be aware of. As her heart raced and her palms began to sweat, Laura wanted to cover her ears and run from the terrible truth that was coming. Yet she forced herself to stay for Sophie's sake. "We won't go into all the details right now," Detective Roberts continued compassionately, "but David has admitted to inappropriate conduct with Sophie during her captivity. We will need your strength and cooperation as we build our case for prosecution." The words hit Laura like a physical blow. She had feared something like this and had nightmares about it, but hearing it confirmed was devastating. A wave of nausea followed by a surge of rage so intense it frightened her. "What do you mean by inappropriate?" she managed to ask in a barely audible whisper. Detective Roberts shook his head gently and explained, "We don't have all the details yet, and we don't want to push Sophie too hard right now. The most important thing is that she's safe, and we'll make sure she gets all the support and help she needs." Numbly, Laura's mind reeled as she struggled to understand how anyone could do such a thing to an innocent child, to her own child. Seeing her distress, Detective Roberts leaned forward, his voice earnest. "I know this is incredibly difficult to hear, but please know that we have victim advocates and child psychologists ready to support both you and Sophie through this process. With proper support, children can recover even from the most traumatic experiences." Taking a shaky breath, Laura asked, "What do I do now? How do I help her?" The detective reassured her, "The most important thing is to be there for her, to let her know that she's safe, that she's loved, and that what happened wasn't her fault. We'll provide you with resources and support to guide you through this process." As they continued to talk about the next steps in the investigation and the available support services, Laura felt a strange mix of emotions. The joy of having Sophie back was now tempered by the painful knowledge of what she had endured. Yet underneath it all, a steely determination took root. No matter what it took, Laura would help her daughter heal from this trauma. When the conversation ended, Laura stood on shaky legs and asked, "Can I see Sophie now?" Detective Roberts nodded and led her back to where Sophie was waiting with the social worker. Rejoining her daughter, Laura saw Sophie with new eyes. The weariness, confusion, and fear that now clouded what had once been a bright expression were painfully evident. Yet, beneath the trauma, Laura could glimpse the resilience and strength that had allowed Sophie to survive such a harrowing ordeal. Embracing her daughter, Laura made a silent promise. No matter how long or difficult the journey ahead might be, she would do whatever it took to help Sophie heal and reclaim her life. Recognizing the need for fresh air and a moment of calm amidst the whirlwind of emotions, the social worker suggested that they take a short break outside the station. As Laura, Sophie, and the social worker stood together outside, discussing the next steps in gentle tones, a familiar figure approached them. It was Mr. Raymond, the part janitor whose attentiveness had played such a crucial role in Sophie's rescue. He had heard the news of Sophie's safe return and had come to the station to see how they were doing. Tears welled in Laura's eyes as she saw him, and without hesitation, she embraced Mr. Raymond, saying thickly with emotion, "Thank you. Without your attentiveness and compassion, we might never have found Sophie." Mr. Raymond patted her back gently and replied, "I'm just glad I could help." His kind eyes then moved to Sophie, who watched the interaction with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. After a few moments of conversation in which Laura expressed her profound gratitude, she turned to Sophie and said softly, "We need to go back inside now, sweetie. We need to talk to the officers again, but it will all be over soon, and then we can go home together." Sophie nodded, taking her mother's hand as they walked back into the station. Crossing the lobby, Laura noticed a hunched figure approaching them. It was Mary Dawson, her eyes downcast and shoulders slumped, her face a map of shame and regret. Mary's voice trembled as she spoke. "I'm so sorry for what my son did to your little girl. I thought he had changed. I never thought he would." Her words choked with emotion, and Laura found it difficult to even look at Mary, knowing that this woman had raised the man who hurt her daughter. Yet, she also recognized that without Mary's courage in coming forward, they might never have found Sophie. After a moment's hesitation, Laura nodded and said firmly, "It's not your fault what your son did. Thank you for coming forward when you did." Wiping away tears, Mary's voice grew stronger as she promised, "I'll cooperate fully with the police, and in court, I'll tell them everything I know about my son, David. I want him to face justice for what he did to your daughter. He's sick and he needs help, but he also needs to pay for what he's done." As they separated, Mary walked toward the exit while Laura guided Sophie deeper into the station. An officer then approached them and explained that an interview room was being prepared to finalize their statements, suggesting that they wait in the waiting area with the social worker. Settling into the waiting room, with Sophie curling up against her mother's side, Laura's mind wandered to the necklace, the crucial piece that had led to everything. Gently stroking her daughter's hair, she asked, "Sophie, do you know how your necklace ended up on that statue's hand in the park?" Sophie tensed slightly at the question, her voice small and hesitant as she replied, "He told me he's a friend of yours and that you were in the park. We got ice cream, but then he became angry. He took the necklace from me and threw it away." Laura's heart clenched at her daughter's words. Realizing that somehow the necklace must have ended up on the statue, as if watching over Sophie's face, Laura felt an overwhelming sense that this was not merely coincidence. The park janitor noticing the necklace, Mary seeing the Facebook post, and all of it coming together so perfectly to save Sophie, it seemed almost guided by a force beyond mere chance. The officer then returned to inform them that the interview room was ready. As they stood to follow him, Laura made a silent vow to do everything in her power to help her daughter heal from this horrific ordeal. Walking toward the interview room, she was struck by the chilling realization that predators like David Dawson lurked everywhere, hiding behind normal appearances while harboring monstrous intentions. With terrifying clarity, she understood just how close she had come to never seeing her daughter again. With her arm protectively around Sophie's shoulders, Laura walked toward the room, profoundly grateful for her daughter's return, yet acutely aware of the long, difficult journey of healing that lay ahead for both of them. Inside the interview room, Laura took a deep breath to steel herself for what was to come. The road ahead would be challenging, but together, with love, support, and time, they would find their way back to happiness and peace. For now, Laura focused on the present moment, on being there for Sophie, as they took this next crucial step in their journey toward healing and justice. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories like this one. Share this video with your friends and family, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for our next video, and check out others you might have missed. See you next time.